Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Elevate Your Soul podcast. Today, I have a very special episode for you guys. I have a special guest on today's show. I have interviewed Viola Hug. She is an intuitive business coach, digital nomad style. She's currently traveling around the world with her husband, Nick, and she's just working online as she's doing this, and she's fully self-employed. And yeah, I am going to talk to her a lot about manifestation on this episode, manifestation in terms of love and money and your desires, as well as touching on mindset and the health of your body and your mind, living with abundance, and going from depression and rock bottom to living an amazing and happy and fulfilling life. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and get lots from it, because even though I was the one interviewing, I got lots from it myself. If you guys are interested in me interviewing anyone else on a certain topic, please let me know and stay tuned for more episodes that I will have on this podcast, interviewing different people on so many different subjects, such as orgasms and sex and mindset, mental health, spirituality, psychic abilities, surviving cancer, and so much more. Now, on to the episode with Viola Hug. I hope you guys enjoy. Welcome to the Elevate Your Soul podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Great. So first of all, can you just tell us a bit about who you are and your story and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you would have heard in the intro, I am an intuitive business coach, and I'm currently traveling the world with my husband, digital nomad style. So we've been on the road traveling, well, on the road as in flying around the world, and for about 6 months now. And it's like crazy, because sometimes I have to pinch myself, and I'm like, I'm literally living the lifestyle that when I was a kid, I used to like visualize, like when I was like a teenager, and people are like, what do you want to do for a job? And I'm like, I don't want a job. I want to travel and just like be my own boss. And like, I had no idea how I would do it. Like when I was a teenager, I thought I'd be an actor. But you know, like I always had this vision for myself. So it is really interesting to like look back and reflect, because it definitely hasn't always been this way.
Yeah.
I mean, Arel, you know, like there's been plenty of heartbreak in our family. And I grew up very, very ambitious. Like I'd always had massive goals for myself, but I also got a little bit derailed on my path, right? Like when I was 16, my dad passed away. Our dad passed away, because we're sisters. If you haven't caught on by now, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to tell my story unless I say our dad, because it just feels weird. But when I was 16, how old were you? 12 or 11? I always forget.
11. Yeah.
You were 11. Yeah. Like, so I was 16 and you were 11. And yeah, our dad passed away. And as you can imagine, that's like a horrific experience for everyone. But it's really interesting how like now in hindsight, I can look back on that, because that was 14 years ago, right? Like it was quite a long time ago. And it doesn't, I mean, I'm speaking of myself, I still have moments where I feel the pain of that. I don't think it's really a pain that ever leaves you. Yeah. However, I now also see the silver lining in the situation, right? Like through that process, it took about 5 years for this seed to blossom, just like Chinese bamboo. Yes. But it planted a seed within me, and it was a seed of complete passion. I saw what it was like for someone to lose their health, and I knew I never wanted to go through that or have anyone else that I love go through that. Yeah. And then on top of that, I saw what it was like for someone who had such passion to not be able to fulfill their dream to the capacity at which they wish they could, right? My dad was a musician, and he never really had that big break he thought he would have. And it's freaking heartbreaking. Yeah. But this festered in me for a while, and I went for probably like 5 years of a lot of self-loathing, a lot of really stupid decisions, a lot of, really destructing all the relationships in my family, until eventually it got so bad that I kind of woke up and it was kind of like the end of the road kind of thing. It was just like I didn't know where else to turn or what else to do with my life. And suddenly it was like I had this little voice inside of me that said, it's not over, just like go get some help. So I decided to get counseling, and that shifted everything for me. So that was when I was 21, and I'm 30 now. So that was still quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And then I was at university at the time. I finished university. And then when I finished university, I started my entrepreneurial journey, because I was just like still in that mindset. It was reborn within me, I should say. It was reborn that I was like, I'm going to do all these amazing things with my life.
Yeah.
And
where did that confidence come from for someone to end a uni course and then be like, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur now and do my own thing? Like,
you know what?
Where did that arise from when you were in such a place of like destruction and self-loathing? How did you
get
to that mindset?
It's such a good question, because I honestly think part of it is that I'm slightly insane. And I think you probably would agree, having grown up with me.
Yeah.
I think we're all a little bit insane in our family.
Reach for the stars. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, like I do think like I am a little bit crazy, and I just like have always had this like almost like ferocious belief in myself in a way, but that transition between being so broken and then having that confidence again was really just because I mean, we can go into this more if you want. We can really dive into it as deep as you like, but it was like I was in such a bad state. Like I was diagnosed with depression, multiple personality disorder, anxiety, like all the things. And I was really not coping. I was literally having like fits at my flatmates that I was living with. I was crying every single night, all night. I couldn't sleep. Like I was in such a terrible space. I was self-harming. I was contemplating suicide, like all the things. Yeah. And which I know you've been through your fair share as well of those things. And it's like, it's not a nice place to be in.
No, but it's so hard to come from that place. And then like you pretty much did like a 180. So was it kind of like for me as well, when I hit rock bottom, it was just like, F this, I'm going to live a life that's actually worthy of living.
Yeah.
Because
that's like pretty much, yeah.
It's either like life or death. And if you're going to choose life, you might as well make it a fucking life.
Yeah, preach. Yeah. And that's pretty much what it was like for me. And it's really interesting having this conversation with you, because I don't think we've ever actually talked about this. No. But yeah, so it's like, that's what it was like for me. Like I write about this in my book as well. I'm writing a book at the moment. And I remember having a moment where it was literally like I was so seriously contemplating suicide that it scared me. Yeah. And being so scared of myself in that moment at the seriousness of that thought, because, like a part of me still wanted to live and it wanted all of these amazing things to happen, but I was just so broken that I couldn't see how it would ever be possible. Exactly. And in that moment, I scared myself so much that it's almost like I cracked. Like I give this analogy that I was just so stiff and I was so broken and everything was so dark and there was just so much darkness within me. And in that moment, I rattled myself so much that I had a crack. And through that crack came this tiny little light. Yeah. And it's this light that I call, it's your soul guidance. It's our higher being. It's like, if we always have two sides to ourselves, the shadow and the light, which everyone has, and we're allowed to love and equally embrace both sides of ourselves. That light for the first time in so long showed itself. Yeah. And that light to me was this feeling of hope. It was this feeling of, this isn't the end. This isn't who you are. This isn't it. And it gave me this sense of hope that I had not felt since I was probably in my early teens, since before Dad got sick. It was the first time I felt that feeling. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then, I still feel emotional when I think about it, because it was just
you're making me emotional. Yeah. And I can totally relate. That's like pretty much exactly how it was. And it's kind of this experience that is actually really hard to put into words, but it was the same thing. Like you just hit rock bottom, and it's like from there you choose light or dark. Once you get so far down the tunnel, you're like, okay. And then when you see that glimpse of light, you have just that little bit of faith. And I think faith faith to hold on and be positive, or even have that little bit of optimism, is like so incredibly important, and that can get you through anything.
Yeah, exactly. And then from there, it was like a slow progression. It's still not like it changed overnight, although in hindsight, like it really feels like it did.
Yeah.
Because then I started thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm worth it. And I started going to counseling, and all the things that I thought were so terrible about myself, I was starting to see were maybe not that terrible. And maybe I was just having a hard time,
Yeah.
and all the things that I'd done that I'd regretted, I was being given a new perspective, and understanding all of the things that were going on in my life. Like suddenly I was looking at life through a new lens, and I started feeling more positive, and I started being able to sleep at night, and I started, like all these things, and I was like being nice to my flatmates, and I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And so it was this slow progression, and it just kind of started to snowball, because not only was that hope there, but I was taking action on it, and every time I actioned it, it like kind of sped up the process. It was like a little bit, the next kind of good thing happened a little bit faster, and then I was so excited about that good thing that it like was upping my vibration. And then through just a series of events, then I also met my next boyfriend, which is now my husband, Nick. And when I met him as well, like that kind of just like was such a powerful thing for me as well, because even though I was already like really doing well on my own path at that point, it was just like fire, it was fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
Because it gave me now something even more to live for, right? It was just like everything is possible, and I'm going to make it. Like the fact that I found someone that I felt like that with, was just like, wow, anything is possible. And I also do want to make it really clear though, like two things, that I don't think you need anyone to feel that feeling. And that's not like, I wouldn't describe that the feeling that I had when I met Nick, my now husband, was one of saving me. It was like an addition. It was like a cherry on the top of something I was already working on.
Exactly.
And then secondly, I also don't believe that you have to hit rock bottom to get yourself out of a situation, because all it takes is you deciding. And sometimes before you can decide, you do have to hit rock bottom. You have to scare yourself out of it. But sometimes you can listen to a podcast, or you can see something inspiring, or you can look at a butterfly in a different way. And it gives you the perspective change where you can say, in this moment, I can choose. No one has to wait for rock bottom. Right?
And death is a huge part of that as well. Sometimes all it takes is someone close to you to pass away, and then you kind of realize how special life is, and how important it is to live your best life now, because you never know when it's going to be over.
Exactly.
And I also just want to make one note as well, is that a lot of us, when we're in this like dark kind of depressive state, a lot of us do hope for a relationship, and we feel like, oh, if only I met someone now to like pull me out of this and make me happier, or give me that hope and inspiration and feelings of love and confidence. It's like a lot of times you're unable to manifest a partner and attract a partner when you're in that state. And usually it takes you doing the work, at least starting it and moving in that right direction. And I hear it so often with people who end up in like long-term relationships. They always meet when they weren't looking for a partner. And then when they were like in that phase of like, oh my God, I need someone, like, and I'm looking and I'm like trying to date a whole bunch of people. It never works that way.
And I mean, I'd be lying if I told you that I didn't want a partner, because I did. Like, I longed to have love in my life so badly and so deeply. And I think, like, I honestly think that part of my soul knew that my twin flame was on this earth. So for those of you that know about like twin flames and soulmates, like, I think I just knew. And so, I mean, possibly that's one of the reasons I longed for it so much. So I'd definitely be lying if I said I wasn't in a way waiting for that. But I was also in a space where I was patient for the first time about it. Right. Like, and this is like a lot of the way that I speak about the stuff that happened at that time is now through my new perspective, because at the time, like I said, even though I knew about like The Secret and stuff, I didn't really understand abundance and manifestation and spirituality and like my connection with my spirit guides. And like, now I'm clairvoyant and I like, can communicate with spirits and all these like amazing, crazy things. But I had none of that knowing back then. That's something that's only developed over the past few years for me. But then I was like, okay, I'm getting really serious about this. And what I did is I created this like jumbo list of what I wanted my next husband to be. Again, little did I know that I was actually manifesting.
Yes.
And I was super specific about what I wanted. I was like, you know, I want to have this type of relationship. I want to feel like this when I'm with him. I want him to feel like this about me. I want, you know, I even wrote down like crazy things. Like I want him to have straight teeth without having had braces so that we could give good genes to our kids. And like, you know, like I was just like thinking full out. And I remember like I would tell my like uni friends, because I was kind of always like this personality where I'd say things that were like purposefully a little bit shocking. And as I discovered human design, I started to realize why I'm like this. But I just like saying things that trigger people a little bit. And so I didn't mind being the weird person. And when I was hanging out with these particular friends, like I always said things that they would kind of like roll their eyes at and we'd all laugh. And so I was always like joking about this, like this list guy, we called it. It was like the list guy. And everyone was like, he doesn't exist. Like, you're crazy to think that you can have a relationship like that. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to be single forever because I'm not dating anyone until I meet this guy. But then at the same time, I don't even know where the heck this came from because I was like so mature back then. But I also thought to myself, if this is the guy that I want, who am I to this guy, right? Like I need to be someone that's worth it for this guy.
Exactly.
So
you need to be that person that's going to attract that type of person.
That guy.
Like you want someone because who's on a high vibe and is taking care of themselves and, you know, is being artistic and playing instruments and whatever. It's like you have to be on that same level. Like you need to be taking care of yourself and
Yeah. And I mean, granted, this was before my like real personal development days. So some of the things on my list weren't necessarily like the most high vibe. I did not have high vibe, but I mean, I think the energy behind what I wanted was there.
Yeah.
And so then that was like during my university year. And then that summer, the first weekend after summer is when I met Nick, and it was like an instant connection. We just straight away clicked, but I like was really reserved about it just because of where I was at. Like I was really like independent woman, don't need no man, like buzz off unless you're my soulmate, like, you know, and, but then there was something about him that really intrigued me. So I went to see him again the next weekend because I lived about 3 hours away from him. And it was like instant connection and it was so amazing. And I was like low key, like asking him all the questions for the things I had on my list and everything. I'm just like, what the heck? He's everything on my list.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think I even needed the list to confirm what I was feeling, but it was just such a funny and cool experience.
Wow.
So that was fun. And then, I mean, I don't know, like then, you know, all of that shift happened. And then from there, it was kind of like, now I was feeling really good. Now I had someone to share my life with. Now, you know, all these things were going so well. And I think all of that just really built up that courage within me. Like, you know, like that voice inside me that I said earlier was getting stronger and stronger. And it's like, you are awesome. Like you can do the things. And so then when I was faced with leaving university, not getting a job in my, you know, area, I studied nutrition and nobody was hiring nutritionists unless they had 5 years experience. And I do not know how anyone does the math with that. Like, you have to go to university to get qualified, but then you have to have 5 years experience to get a job. Like, I don't get it. And then I ended up working in retail, which is what I was doing before I studied. And I just felt like the lowest of the low. I'm just like, WTF universe. Like, I'm like, I've just committed 3.5 years of my life to study. And now I'm doing the same thing that I've hated. And I think that was just like the final straw for me. And I was like, that's it. Fuck everything. I'm going to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I started my first business. And I mean, that whole journey was like a journey itself. Like so many crazy things happened there. And it's really only been over the last year that I think I've really found my place in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
But it's like also such an incredible journey because it introduced me to such a profound sense of really wanting to know myself and personal development, and then also introduced me into this world of spirituality and intuition and manifestation and abundance, and really like allowed me to see, and I know this in my soul like so deeply that I like want to like shake everyone until they like get it too. It's like we actually we have the capacity to have everything that we desire in our lifetime. You do not need to choose a career or a family. You do not need to choose this or that. Like you can have everything you desire.
Yeah.
And if you desire it, it's meant for you on some level.
Exactly.
Right? Like we don't desire things that aren't meant to be a part of our experience.
Yeah.
It's just not how it works.
Yeah.
And so now that's like really, I guess like what I'm so passionate about is helping awaken that in other people. It's like, you can do it all. Like, just let's get you there. Let's help you see the vision. Let's build up that courage and, you know, decide what you want and just go for it.
Yeah. And how did you find that link between you wanting to be an entrepreneur and work for yourself and, you know, I'm not sure what other goals you or visions you had of yourself, like traveling the world and having
Mm-hmm.
a husband, like how did you link the business part with personal development and spirituality? Because a lot of people are wanting to be entrepreneurs or run their own business or, you know, gain financial freedom, but they don't always link you know, personal development and spirituality to that.
Yeah, I think it's like we're living in a really, really special time, I think, because more than ever, people are awakening to their own, you know, spirituality and their own connection, and not in a way of what they've been told, but from what they're experiencing within,
Yeah.
right? So it's like now people aren't just like believing in some sort of higher power because that's what they were told or
Yeah.
anything. It's like people are experiencing it at a whole new level. Like that's why hashtag woke is so trending, right? Like we're at a time where people are awakening, and we're also at a really interesting space in time because we've just come out of an era where there was a lot of scarcity. There was a lot of like, you fight for your job, and when you have your job, you never give up on it. Like, you know, after the World War and everything. So like our parents' age, they really come from a space where they were told to work really, really hard for a job, and then you never give up on that job because there might not ever be anything better.
Yeah.
And then people that were in business were like the mega hustlers. Like they're the people that just like would be in competition with everyone around them. They would like, you know, slide deals under the table. They would knock people down so that they could get one up. Like it was this very like harsh industry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas the thing is, I mean, I'm not saying that there's not still business like that around. However, we've transitioned into a time where business is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Now I am in business, but what can I show for my business? Nothing. My business is virtual.
Yeah.
I am my business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's a completely different game when your energy and who you are is your business. And I say this so often to like online entrepreneurs and like people who want to be coaches or, you know, yoga teachers or anything within that
Yeah.
realm where it's really just about like you bringing something forward that you love and monetizing it, basically like turning it into your life's work.
Yeah.
So not only now can you be passionate about it, but you can make a living from it, which I mean, how freaking cool is that?
Yeah.
But it's like also understanding that when you are the business, when your passion is the business, then it's actually your soul's development is the standard for the growth that you can have in your business.
Yeah.
Like there's only a certain amount of growth you can have from only focusing on sales and marketing or only focusing on this or that, right? Like it's a completely different world. And so, I mean, I was introduced to it through, I started my my entrepreneur career in network marketing, where personal development is really taught. Like it's infused in the system of how they teach, right? Like you read this book and then you read that book and then you take that action.
Yeah.
And when I started getting into this world, it was like, you know how, like I said earlier, when I first watched The Secret, it was almost like it confirmed everything my soul knew to be true. I was like, I knew we can, you know, manifest things, and I knew the law of attraction was real. Like it was just like this feeling. And when I started reading personal development books, which are basically, you know, like books of people who have been through the things, who have achieved the things in their life, who have done incredible things, who are sharing part of their journey with you and their mindset, and being able to take like a peek into the mindset of those people made me realize that the main shift, the main thing that's different for people in terms of what they end up doing with their life is the way that they look at life. It's their mindset.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the more I started diving into that, the more I started seeing the multi-faceted ways that we're impacted by things. And I've always been a little bit more holistic minded. Like when I was in nutrition, it was always like, no, it's not just food, it's exercise, it's mindset, it's relationships, it's all the things.
Yes.
And so it was no different when I started getting into business. It's like, wow, like, you know, like an example is that I was doing really well for a time, and then I started not doing really well in my business, right? And I'm like going, this is interesting. Like, what's going on? Like, I feel like I'm doing pretty well with my mindset. Like, this is going pretty well.
Yeah.
And then I go, oh, what about my money mindset?
Yeah.
And then I start diving into my money mindset. I'm like, oh yeah, this shit's fucked. Like,
Yeah.
this needs some serious work. And then, you know, I start digging into that, and then I start going, oh, money's an energy. And I'm like, ooh, abundance, what's this? And not that abundance is only money. Like, I believe abundance is all that you could ever imagine in anything, in love and relationships, you know, and everything.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it was like kind of like the path led me where I needed to go. And so I figured those things out as I needed to, because if I wasn't figuring it out on my own, the universe found a way to wake me up to it.
Yeah. And so when you say manifesting the life you want and all this, and becoming abundant and becoming a happier person, you say it's all mindset, but do you believe that self-worth and feelings of worthiness tie into that as well?
I think it's all related, definitely. I mean, self-worth is a really interesting one, because it's, if you think about it, would you ever look at a baby and say, you're worthy, and then look at the next baby and go, and you're not worthy?
Yeah.
And then look at the next one and be like, you're destined to be successful, and look at the next one and be like, and you're not.
Yeah.
No, like every single baby, every single infant that comes into this world is a worthy soul.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what do you believe has changed to make you not worthy? Right? And for a lot of people, it's because they've taken on stories and they've picked up beliefs that have told them the story that for whatever reason they're not worthy, right?
Which is,
and so it's,
which is
sorry,
not only from, you know, family and friends, but it's a huge thing to do with our, like, the way our society is as well, and like the media. So it's not only like, oh, what did my parents do wrong? It's like, you probably grew up in a society where you were bombarded with this like subconscious message, like, you need to change, the way you are right now is not good enough, or something's wrong with you. Like,
we definitely grew up in a society that like encourages us all to go a little bit crazy at some point. But it's like, yeah, it's so interesting because there's so many things. And I think as well, it's worth saying it's not really that our parents ever did anything wrong, or that there's really right or wrong things that are happening to us, but it's our perception of it all, right? Because to our parents, they're doing the best they know how.
Yeah.
And I often reflect on this, and I mean, our dad was like incredible. And I know like he's been gone for so long. We've all kind of made up stories and perception of who he is in our mind now, which I think naturally happens. But a lot of things that I reflected in terms of my healing journey was I had a lot of resistance around, well, many things. Like I had a lot of resistance around sex and like talking about anything to do with sexuality. I had a lot of resistance around showing my love for people, and always kind of feeling like I needed to be like a little bit hard on the outside and a little bit more reserved in terms of what I showed to people.
Hard to get or whatever.
Yeah, or not even hard to get, just like even in like for example, in my business, like it was like I even though I so cared about the people I worked with, it was like I needed to come across professional, and I couldn't really like, you know, let them see that side of me, and like really openly discussing emotions.
You didn't want to be vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, and it was interesting because there were some areas I was okay, but some areas I wasn't. And then as I was doing some work with my coach, one of the things that I like, one of the huge memories that I have of Dad is when he was really awkward about people saying I love you to him. Like I was such a loving kid. Like it was my favorite sentence, I love you. Like I said it to our neighbors, I said it to our cats, I said it to everyone, because I just genuinely felt love for people. And I know now.
I remember that time as well. And like objects as well. Like I love that tree, and I love pesto on toast or something.
Yeah. Like I just love this, and I love that. And I remember I told Doris Mason, I don't know if you remember that because I was still quite young. I told Doris Mason I loved her, and we like got in trouble.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
And then I was just, and they're like, you say you like people, you don't love them. And it was like this big lecture we got.
Yeah.
And it scarred me because my soul is actually here to love people. Like I just love people so much, I can't even express it. Like I just love people. Yes. And now I say to everyone, and I think I'm like a little bit extreme with it now, is like to make up for that. But it's so interesting because for me, that triggered something within my own worth, my own perception of myself, my own perception of who I thought I should be. However, when you don't look at me in the picture, when you look at dad's own experience, he grew up in a family that did not know how to show love.
Yeah.
And he, as much as he still did some work on himself, that was a pattern he had not healed, right? Yes. So he felt to get 3 children, because all of us are pretty friggin' crazy with the love train, but like to get 3 kids that love so unconditionally and for no reason, they just love you, is, I can imagine, would have been so hard on what he was mentally battling with and emotionally battling with. Yeah. So it was his own struggle, right? It was not anything to do with me. He was loving us the best he knew how.
Yeah.
And that's just how I perceived it, was, oh, I shouldn't do that, or that's not a good thing to do, or whatever the heck I told myself that, developed all of these scenarios in my life. So the question with worth is not actually about like, are you worthy, or, your self-worth. It's like, well, actually you are. It's asking yourself, well, what do you perceive happened between being born a perfect, worthy being and now that you think makes you not worthy? Yeah. And then when you can identify those things, then you can allow the healing to start taking place.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that does come back to mindset, because it is your mindset that thinks if you are worthy or if you're not worthy.
Yeah. I think the mind is like a powerful tool, right? Like I think mindset's like a really overarching term. Yeah. There's many assets to it, or like perspectives to it. So it's like, is it mindset to do with spirituality, or is it to do with worth, or is it to do with X, Y, Z? But it's our mind. We can always use our mind to support ourselves on that journey. Exactly. And we can use it to destruct us, like.
Oh, completely, one way or the other. Yeah. I just want to touch on one thing as well. You said how about that love thing. That's so funny. I like completely forgot about that, but it just triggered it within me. And I'm like, I completely remember that. And I remember him like lecturing both of us and being like, you don't love things and you don't love other people. You only love your family. And he like made it that like love is so special, like it's about specialness, and like you can share love with one person but not another person. And I found that actually a lot of people hold that belief as well. Like I do have some people in my lives where I'm like, oh my God, I love you. Like I love my followers. I love my friends. And people are like, you can't love that many people. Like, how can how can you share love to so many people? It's like, it's almost that scarcity mindset again, like what I'm pretty sure our whole family grew up around, scarcity around money.
I think like everyone.
Exactly. It's like this scarcity around love as well. Like your heart isn't big enough, or you don't have enough love to pour on top of everyone. And if you love 2 people or 100 people or whatever at the same time, it's like, it's almost like this mindset, like you're giving less love to someone. So like if you love 2 people,
it's like it's limited.
Yeah, they're only getting 50% of love. Whereas if you love one person, they'd get 100%. And it's like, no, that's not how love works. It's like this abundant amount of energy that you can give to anyone and anything that you choose to. You can give it to plants and to water and to animals. And
I highly recommend that too. It's good for the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
Keep
pouring out the love. Like.
Yeah. No, I think that's so true. It's really interesting. And then like the other thing is also so interesting that, like just talking about this and how it's like people like that are coming up in your life. It's like also like, it's interesting to ask yourself as well, is like, where are you maybe still holding on to stories, or where are you feeling like maybe you shouldn't give too much love, like, and assessing that for yourself. Like I always love doing that, is when things come up in my life, that I'm noticing like, oh, this feels interesting, or this is that, then it's like interesting thinking, okay, well, where in my life am I reflecting this right now? Because, if you were maybe in a different energetic space, you might not even notice that person's acting that way. But it's like, you're noticing it because it's still something that you have a story attached to.
Well, it is my ex. So he's no longer. I remember my ex-partner always was like, very like, oh, there's no way you can love like more than one person. But that was
like, and this is like also, it's like a huge thing as well with abundance, right? Like, or like, not just abundance, but the whole concept, which a lot of people go through. I struggled with this too. And it's like the concept of, I want more in my life. Like I want to have more, and I want to do more, and I want to like have better love and like all these things. But then like having on one end, having this desire, but then on the other hand, feeling guilty because it's like, oh, well, I should be grateful for what I have.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that you can actually simultaneously have both. You can simultaneously be so grateful for every single thing in your life and still desire more, because newsflash, we're actually designed to evolve and to grow. So we'll always have that desire within us. And just like a woman can have a child that she completely and loves with her entire soul and be pregnant with a second child.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it is possible. And it's the same thing with healing and with wounds and with all of the things. It's like we can act at the same time as we are healing our own trauma, we can be supporting someone with theirs. At the same time that we unconditionally love our family, we can also be angry for the times that we felt that they weren't there in the capacity we needed them to be. Right? Like, we're allowed to feel it all.
So you don't believe in the like, oh, we need to have our cup full in order to help someone else?
No, I do believe in that, but I think it's like, for example, it's like teaching from a place of mastery. So 100% we need to be in the energy of ourselves. And so if you're someone who is like completely friggin' at your wit's end, and it's almost like, I mean, I used to be like this as well. It's like, my life is freaking shit and I'm doing nothing about it and I'm trying to give everyone else advice. Right. That I think doesn't necessarily work that well. Right. Even though I'm sure you can say things that can impact other people positively. But let's say, like, for example, you are healing from, you have just had your heart broken, right? However, you are healing, you are actively working on healing yourself. Yeah. And at the same time, showing someone else who's just gone through heartbreak what you've done. It's like teaching from a place of mastery. Or if like you had a really bad financial situation and you're working your way out of the financial situation, and it's not the best financial situation now, but you've been actively in mastery of it. You've been taking action and you've been shifting your mindset and you've been investing and getting help and you've been doing all the things. You can also teach someone else how to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also just want to touch on one thing that you said a while ago about that feeling of guilt, like how we are meant to be here on planet Earth to live an amazing human experience. And it is so like so many people have this mindset, like we're here on Earth school and like it's supposed to be hard and, you need to struggle in order to earn money, and relationships are hard and career is hard, and like this mindset that like everything needs to be a struggle. And it's like, if you're going to adopt that mindset, that's just going to become your reality. And I believe that we were meant to be here to live an amazing experience. And of course it's going to be challenging. That's the whole part of it. That's how we learn and evolve and grow. It's like we are learning along the way, but we are supposed to feel good. And as you said about like fulfilling your desires, and pleasure comes into that as well. Like so many people have feelings of guilt around pleasure, whether it's sexual pleasure or even just as simple as food and like eating a chocolate truffle.
This is a huge one. Yeah.
It's like that is what
we block ourselves off from feeling pleasure, especially women.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. We block ourselves off because and then once again, it comes back to mindset. We have this belief that we're not allowed to feel pleasure, or that we're not worthy of it. And then feeling,
or that it's naughty, or that it's selfish, or that it's, we don't have time for that, or whatever the hell we're telling ourselves. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's so important to dive into those beliefs. And so many of those beliefs are subconscious for us. And that's what makes it so hard, because like some people, like sometimes when I'm talking to my friends, I'm like, oh, you must have like some kind of belief that's blocking you from getting that. And they're completely unaware that they have a belief. And they're like, oh no, like consciously they know that they can earn lots of money, or consciously they know that they're able to be a healthy, fit person. But it's like, there's obviously something going on in the subconscious, that like some kind of belief that you've adopted when you were really, really young, that's blocking you and getting in the way of living in abundance, or of manifesting what you really want.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a tough pill to swallow, to like admit to yourself that it might be because of you. Like I can remember
Yes.
Yeah, like I remember so many times where I'm like, it is definitely not me. And then I'm like, oh shit, yeah, it's me. You know, like it takes bravery. And I say this, like, courage is going to be one of your best friends. And courage is a muscle. It grows and it develops and it gets stronger. So, you know, you facing yourself with courage gets a lot easier, but
Yeah,
it is shit scary at times because you have to admit you are the only problem.
exactly.
And when your partner's annoying you and they're doing annoying things, guess what, honey? If you change yourself, you'll watch them change.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
it is not an easy one. And it's interesting, like you said, like the Earth School, like, oh, everything's a challenge. What's so funny is that how come two people can go through two very, very similar experiences that are traumatic,
Yeah.
and one comes out the other end going cursing life and like, you know, all upset, and one person is friggin' Oprah, you know,
Exactly.
like how does
Exactly.
that happen?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because again it comes back down to perspective. It's like, and I've been on both ends, let me just make that very clear, I've been on both ends of my life,
Yeah.
where you think life is happening to you and every struggle is this terrible thing that's happening to you and you're cursed and you're the unlucky one and you just can't catch a break, and it's like all these things that we're telling ourselves. And then however, you can actually go through the same experience with the belief that it is happening for you. And even though it's a challenge, as in it's happening for you to support you on your journey, it's happening for you to teach you something, it's happening for you to experience yourself, to get to know yourself at a new level. Like, who
Yeah.
knows what it is exactly. But if we trust that it's all happening for us, then a challenge doesn't feel like this horrible thing. It's
Exactly.
just a part of our
Like it's
experience.
the end of a road or something. And
Yeah, like,
that was my second tattoo that I got, and I stamped it right on my freaking wrist, so I see it all the time, and that's everything happens for a reason. And it's
mm-hmm,
like if
mm-hmm.
you adopt that belief, yeah, it's hard at times, especially when like you feel like the universe is giving you hell, but having that mindset, it's kind of like that same kind of thing, like it's happening for you. What's the lesson? Like just having that, and it comes back to faith, what we talked about earlier on as well, like having that little bit of faith is like, I will be okay, there is a reason for this. After, you know, whatever's happening right now, I'm going to be stronger from it, or this feeling, this amount of pain I'm in right now is only temporary and it's not going to last, and I can choose to, you know, keep going forward and to be positive and to turn this event around and
Yeah.
go back on track.
Yeah, and it's also like not even like, yes, everything happens for a reason. At the same time though, it's like, what if you believe, like what you said before, like if you believe something, that's the experience you're going to have. What
Yeah.
if you believe that everything that happened to you is a good thing? So your phone breaks, oh, it's a good thing, you know? This, you know, your boyfriend does this, oh, it's a good thing.
I
Like,
love
what if your belief was
that.
that everything was a good thing,
Every
right?
single thing. I love that so much. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like really one of the beliefs that's been the most empowering for me
Oh,
dealing with challenge. The last, like, you know, couple of years, it's been a really powerful belief for me because I, you know, like last year or 2 years ago now, we went traveling in the States, and we were literally just like relying off our business income, so we had to work online to like keep our income up while we were traveling. And the first week we spilt a bottle of water on the laptop and it like completely fried.
oh
And
wow.
then, you know, like that's an easy thing to freak out about, be like, oh my god, this is how I'm supposed to work, this is like, you know, this is how we're supposed to make money, we only have money for like this week, like what's going to happen, like, you know, it's really easy to get into that spiral. But instead, like, because I've been really working on building that belief, I just said, this is a good thing. Like, you know, I'm interested to see what will happen. And so the first week we were there, we were on a RV trip. So we were like taking an RV around America. And then we were going to LA to stay with some friends for a while. And so I was like, okay, whatever, let's not think about the laptop. We don't need it while we're on the RV trip anyway. We just enjoyed the whole rest of our trip rather than letting it consume us. Then we get to our friend's place and he's just in the middle of launching like this business he's creating.
Yeah.
And he needed some help with design work. And that's like something I'm good at. And I was like, I'm more than happy to help you. And he's like, cool, like, do you have a computer? I was like, oh no, I don't, we broke ours. And he's like, okay, well, what if I gift you a laptop as payment? And I'm like, yes, please. And it was like a way better laptop than the one we had. So it was like such an awesome thing, you know, and like within less than a week, I manifested a new laptop and I didn't even have to go through all the stress and the pain.
Exactly. You chose not to.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to ask you a question for my audience. Like, how do people become more in alignment so that they can manifest like happiness and more love and live in more abundance of love and like peace and all those good feelings? Like, how do people get in alignment to manifest their desires and get what they want?
I think like a big thing to understand is that we're always manifesting, right? Like I always used to believe that like manifestation was something like some people had the skill of being able to do and some people didn't.
Yes.
And like I remember like my friend and I, we saw a clairvoyant, and my friend was told that she was an instant manifester, and I wasn't told that, but I also wasn't told I was not that. It just never came up in my reading.
Yeah.
And then I'm like sitting there going like, oh, she's so lucky. She can instantly manifest. And I'm over here like I need to like practice, and like, you know, it's hard for me and it's so hard to manifest. And again, I was believing it. So it was my experience.
Yes.
And then I started to realize that manifestation is actually literally just like everything in your life is a manifestation. Like manifestation is always happening, and manifestation is actually super easy and it happens super fast.
Yeah.
When we have
any life experience is a manifestation, is what you're saying.
So yeah, the concept of manifestation is that manifestation is the physical reality of an energetic feeling or visualization or pull, like an energetic pull, right? So, I mean, we can like dive into this maybe in another episode when we have more time to talk about this stuff deeply, if you want to do it another time. But like, you know, there's like all the laws of the universe, and there's the law of vibration, and there's the law of attraction, and there's all these laws that talk about like who we are as a physicality.
Yeah.
Manifests our physical experience, right? Manifestation, all it is the physical experience of an energetic form.
Yeah.
So really, like we could literally be living in what do you call it, like a virtual reality where everything we're experiencing in life is our soul's like physical manifestation, or our body's physical manifestation. And so the concept of manifestation in that sense is literally everything's a manifestation. Like the way that you eat breakfast, like the partner you have, like everything is a manifestation.
Yes.
And when there's things that we want in our life that we don't currently have, it's not actually a question about like, how can I manifest? Because you actually already can manifest. You're innately, by default, already a master manifester. The question is, how can you become in alignment with the things you want to manifest?
Exactly.
Because the things that manifest for us quickly, like, you know, all the things we experience on the day-to-day life, all the things that we believe to be true about our experience, so we experience continuously, those happen because we're in energetic alignment with those things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And so again, you don't need to perceive anything. Like some people sometimes they're like, oh, but you know, I've been doing so much self-development and still these bad things are happening. It's like, well, are they really bad, or are you perceiving them as bad?
Right.
Right. Like, and then go back to that conversation we just had. And so it's then about thinking, okay, like similar to the story I said about manifesting my husband. It's like, if these are the things that you want in your life, who do you have to energetically be to match that? So if you want to manifest like a life where you're experiencing a lot more love and a lot more, you know, like harmony in your relationships, well, how can you be an energetic match for harmony and love in relationships? Well, work on physically creating that energy within yourself. How can you love yourself more? How can you create more harmony with the relationship within yourself?
Yeah.
And it's like always turning the mirror back on yourself is the best place to stop, because that's always going to give us all the clues of where we're in alignment with what we want and where we're out of alignment with what we want. Yeah. And then if we can have awareness to question ourselves and be open with ourselves and be non-judgmental of where we're at, and just, you know, love ourselves anyway, regardless of whether we perceive it as our fault or not, then that's how we can actually begin to move forward and create a really positive experience with whatever it is we want to manifest.
Exactly. And as you said, like with looking in the mirror, turning the mirror is always the best thing. I 100% agree with that, but it is quite challenging and hard, especially for people who are, you know, feeling depressed or in this negative mindset. And it's also about like taking responsibility that you got yourself to where you are today, that you can't point the finger and blame other people. It's like manifested everything in your life today, right now. Like you've manifested
Mm-hmm.
this chair that you're sitting in right now, listening to this podcast, or the car you're driving,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the relationship you're in. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much power in taking responsibility. Like if you,
Yeah.
like nobody wants to be responsible for their life if they like have depression and can't
Yeah.
do that and like are in a shit relationship and don't have a job. It's like you don't want to take responsibility then. But people who are like earning lots of money and have an amazing family and a great husband and kids
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, they'll be fine to take responsibility. But it's like once you take responsibility, you're putting yourself in a position where you're back in power, and you know that you have a choice, and you are your own God of your life. Like you manifest everything in your life. And when you take that power back and you're like, yeah, I am going to be responsible for where I am today, then you have more power going forward to be responsible of making a better life and manifesting things, and things
Absolutely.
that are more in your alignment with what you're actually wanting.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. Like it puts you back in the driver's seat, right?
Yes, exactly.
And it's like you can look at it one of two ways. You can either decide to believe, like you can't just be picky with your beliefs. You can't be like, when it's shit, it's not my fault, and when it's good, it's definitely my doing.
Exactly.
You have to decide, like either you get to choose that none of it you don't have control with any of it.
Yeah.
In which case you don't have to take responsibility for when it's shit.
Yeah.
But you also can't choose when it gets to be good. Right?
Yeah.
You also can't take responsibility for when it's good. Or you can live life saying, it's all because of me. And then you can take responsibility for when it's bad, and you can shift your energy, put yourself in that driver's seat, and you get to own it and love it and embrace every part of it when it's amazing.
Exactly. And quote unquote bad, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's really all a perception after all.
Yeah. All right.
And I think as well, like just one last thing before we finish off, like because you said before it's like really hard to see when you're depressed and stuff, and like hello, I know we've both been depressed, so we know.
Yeah.
But it's like I really truly believe that you will hear the message when you're ready to hear it. Yeah. And like free advice never friggin' saved anyone. Like you can give people advice all you want, like you can listen to 100,000 episodes. If you're not ready to hear the message, it's not going to sink in.
Exactly.
Right? But the thing is, like, you just have to have, like, if you're listening to this, I'm not assuming that you're like working on yourself in some way or another. So it's just like, my recommendation is always just like be mindful of where you're triggered, because if you're being triggered, it's an area for you to grow in, which again is a tough pill to swallow. But then it's like, I really truly believe people hear the message when they're ready to. Yeah. And so it's just our job to keep, sharing what we love, sharing what makes us happy, sharing what we believe, can help other people. And then eventually our message or someone else's will land perfectly for that person when they're ready to hear it.
Yeah. And I don't want to go on another rant of another big topic, but that comes back to how like you can't change people. So it's like, yeah, you can give someone advice and you can tell them, where they're not in alignment and how they can get in more alignment. But if they're not ready to hear that advice or take that advice, then there's nothing you can do. Like you can't change people. You can inspire them and influence them and educate them, but it's still up to them to actually listen to the message and then do something with it. Like knowledge is one thing, but action is another thing entirely.
Yeah, and that's like why I literally don't give advice anymore. Because people don't listen to advice, and it's like the same thing. Like I just like laugh so hard at like I like pay for like a program and they tell me the exact same stuff I heard on podcasts, but suddenly I'm listening, it's just so interesting how the mind does that. But yeah, it's like, it's interesting.
The answers are already all within us. Like every single person who's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Like, help me. Or this, it's so confusing and complicating. I'm not sure how to get better. It's like, you're confusing and complicating things because it's your excuse, because you're not ready to change. Like, I'm sure, like, I'm sure every person who's unfit, who wants a fit body, knows how to go for a walk or ride a bike. Right. But it's like, hire these personal trainers because it's like, they need so much more than just, it's not the education they're lacking. Like I believe that all of the answers are within us, and we just need to deep and find those answers and discover them.
Exactly. And it's like the concept of that is so profound because we have it within us. And this is what I think is like really a good thing. Like when you work with people who are like good coaches or, you know, that can hold space for us in a really powerful way. It's like it's allowing us to figure that out for ourselves. The only reason why I think it's like important to acknowledge your own power with it, but then from that space you can choose whether or not you do want a personal trainer or you do want a coach, because the only benefit of that is you can speed up the time it takes, because you might like be fumbling around the gym trying to figure out the perfect workout for you and your goals, and it might take you ages to figure out the perfect routine, whereas a personal trainer could sit down with you in one session and be like, do this, this, and this. And you'd be like, oh, okay. And then you can go to the gym all by yourself.
Exactly. And then it's up to you. Yeah, it's up to you from there. Like,
well, it's always up to you. Yeah.
Years or can I get this shit done on my own now?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, this has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
And yeah, no worries.
Yeah, it's been great having you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, that's a wrap.
Cool. Thank you so much, and bye.
Thank you. Bye.